You think you can just walk away from me? Marcus Vella's hand clamped around her wrist, his grip tight enough to bruise. The charity gala's string quartet still played in the adjacent ballroom, utterly oblivious to what was happening in this dim corridor. After everything I've invested in you, the dress you're wearing cost more than your yearly salary. Elena kept her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. That was your choice, not mine. I never asked for any of it. Around them, Marcus's associates formed a semicircle, blocking her path back to the safety of the crowd. She recognized 2 of them from the investment firm where she worked as a junior analyst. They weren't looking at her face anymore. Ungrateful, Marcus spat, yanking her closer. At 47, he'd been pursuing her for months, ever since she'd been assigned to his portfolio. Flowers, expensive dinners she'd refused, text messages that came at midnight. Her supervisor had suggested she be friendlier to valued clients. Tonight, he'd cornered her, and his patience had apparently run out. You came here with me. You'll leave with me. We have an understanding. We have nothing. Elena tried to pull away, her heart hammering. She was 28, good at her job, and had made the catastrophic mistake of thinking professional competence would be enough shield. Let go of me, or I'll scream. Go ahead. His smile was ugly. Everyone here knows you're with me. They'll just think you had too much wine. One of the men behind her laughed, low and knowing. The fear crystallized into something sharper. Elena looked Marcus dead in the eye. I don't need your protection, your money, or anything else you think you're offering. Get your hand off me. For a moment, his expression went blank with shock. Women didn't talk to Marcus Vella this way. He had connections, money, and the kind of power that made people look the other way. Then his face darkened. You stupid little... The lady asked you to let go. The voice came from the shadows at the far end of the corridor, quiet as falling snow, and twice as cold. Every man in that hallway went absolutely still. Elena felt Marcus's grip slacken just slightly as he turned. She turned too, and her breath caught. The man who emerged from the darkness moved like violence contained in an expensive suit. Tall, dark-haired, with the kind of face that belonged on Renaissance paintings. Beautiful and severe in equal measure. He couldn't have been more than 35, but he carried himself with an authority that made Marcus, for all his bluster, suddenly look small. This is a private conversation, Marcus said, but there was a tremor in his voice that hadn't been there before. Dante, I didn't know you were attending tonight. Dante. Elena had heard that name whispered in certain circles. Dante Moretti, the man who'd consolidated the city's fractured underworld into something resembling a kingdom, whose family name appeared on legitimate business licenses and in police reports with equal frequency. Who made people disappear? Let her go. Dante didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The command in those 3 words could have moved mountains. Marcus released her wrist immediately, stepping back. His associates melted away from Elena like she'd become toxic. We were just, Marcus started. Leaving. You were just leaving. Dante's dark eyes fixed on Marcus with the intensity of a predator selecting prey. All of you! The gala's over for you tonight. Now wait just a minute, one of Marcus's friends began. Dante tilted his head slightly. Behind him, 2 more figures materialized from the shadows. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The message was crystalline. Leave or be removed. Marcus grabbed Elena's arm one more time, a last desperate grasp at control. You'll regret this. I'll make sure you never work in this city again. You'll be... Dante moved. One moment he was 10 feet away. The next, his hand was wrapped around Marcus's throat, lifting him onto his toes. Dante's expression never changed. If you ever touch her again, if you speak to her again, if you so much as think her name, his voice dropped to barely above a whisper, I will show you exactly what regret feels like. Every bone. Very slowly. Do we have an understanding? Marcus made a strangled sound that might have been agreement. Dante released him. Marcus stumbled backward, his face purple, his carefully styled hair disheveled. Without another word, he fled, his associates scrambling after him like rats abandoning a sinking ship. The corridor fell silent except for the distant music. Elena found herself alone with Dante Moretti and whatever nightmare she'd just traded Marcus for. Her wrist throbbed where Marcus had grabbed her. Her whole body was shaking now that the immediate danger had passed, adrenaline making her hands tremble. "Thank you," she managed, her voice smaller than she wanted it to be. I should get back." "No one who was watching that will help you." Dante's gaze fixed on her, and she felt stripped bare under its intensity. "Vela has influence here. By tomorrow morning, you'll be the woman who caused a scene, the troublemaker. They'll have you fired before lunch." She knew he was right. The realization settled over her like ice water. "Then I'll find another job." "Will you?" He stepped closer and she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. Cedar, maybe. Smoke. "He said he'd make sure you never work in this city again. Men like Marcus keep their promises when their ego's been bruised, and you just bruised his very publicly." Elena lifted her chin despite the fear. "What's your point, Mr. Moretti?" Something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe, or approval. "My point, Elena Castellano, is that you just made yourself a target. You need protection whether you want it or not." Hearing her full name from his lips sent a chill down her spine. "How do you know my name?" "I make it my business to know everyone in my territory." He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world, like the entire city belonged to him. "You graduated top of your class from Columbia. You've been supporting your grandmother in Queens since your parents died. You work for Hastings and Gray, where you're vastly underpaid and routinely overlooked despite consistently outperforming your peers. And tonight, you told one of the most vindictive men in Manhattan that you don't need his protection." The accuracy of his information was terrifying. "You've been watching me?" "I watch everyone who's interesting." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "My car's waiting out back. I'm going to take you home." "I don't think—" "That wasn't a request, Miss Castellano. Marcus is humiliated and drunk and very, very angry. His associates are weak men who do what he tells them to feel powerful. If you try to get home alone tonight, I guarantee you won't make it to the subway unmolested." His eyes bored into hers. "You said you don't need protection. Prove me wrong." Elena weighed her options. Dante Moretti was dangerous. Everyone knew that. He was also, she suspected, being completely honest about what would happen if she refused his help. And something in his manner, in the way he'd intervened without being asked, suggested he wasn't planning to collect payment the way Marcus would have. Maybe she was trading one devil for another. Or maybe, for tonight at least, she was choosing the devil who'd actually asked. "Fine," she said. "Take me home." His smile was slight but genuine. Smart woman. The car was a black SUV with windows so heavily tinted they had to be illegal. Dante opened the door for her himself, a gesture of courtesy that seemed absurdly out of place given everything else. The interior smelled like leather and money. They drove through Manhattan in silence for several minutes. Elena watched the city lights blur past, her mind racing. She should feel afraid. She probably was afraid if she was being honest. But underneath the fear was something else. Relief? Gratitude? Or something more complicated that she didn't want to examine too closely. "You should have screamed," Dante said suddenly. "When Vela grabbed you. You threatened to, but you didn't." The music was loud. No one would have heard. That's not why. He glanced at her, his profile sharp in the passing streetlights. "You didn't scream because you knew it wouldn't help. You knew everyone at that gala would take his side, not yours. You've learned that lesson already." She had learned it. Over and over, in small ways and large. The supervisor who suggested she smile more. The senior partner who asked if she'd considered being someone's assistant, instead of trying to make analyst. The client meetings where she was introduced as our girl, like she was decoration, rather than the person who'd built the entire portfolio strategy. What do you want from me, Mr. Moretti? Right now? Nothing. Tomorrow. He paused, seeming to consider his words carefully. Come work for me. Elena turned to stare at him. Excuse me? You're a financial analyst. I have a great many legitimate businesses that require financial analysis. Real estate, import-export, hospitality. You'd be working on the legal side of my enterprises. He pulled up to a red light and looked at her directly. I pay triple what Hastings and Gray pays you, full benefits, and no one will ever put their hands on you without your explicit permission, or they'll answer to me. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a choice. Tomorrow, Hastings and Gray will fire you. Marcus will make sure of it. You can spend the next 6 months begging for interviews at firms that have already heard you're difficult. Or you can walk into my office Monday morning and start fresh. Working for a crime boss. Working for a businessman with diversified interests. His smile was razor thin. Everything I'll have you working on is completely legal. I have accountants and lawyers who handle the rest. The SUV pulled up in front of her grandmother's building in Queens, a modest walk-up that had seen better decades. Dante had known exactly where to go without her giving directions. Think about it over the weekend, he said. I'll have someone watching the building. You'll be safe. I didn't agree to any of this. You didn't have to. Marcus Vella became my problem the moment he touched you in my presence. Dante's expression hardened. I don't tolerate that kind of behavior in my city. It's bad for business and worse for everyone involved. Elena's hand was on the door handle, but she paused. What will happen to him? To Marcus? Nothing permanent, probably. Dante's tone was casual, but there was steel underneath. He'll wake up tomorrow with a clear understanding of boundaries. If he's smart, he'll stay within them. She should run. She should get out of this car and never look back. Instead, she heard herself ask, Monday morning. What time? That slight smile again, like she'd surprised him. 9 a.m., Moretti Tower, 45th floor. Ask for me specifically. Elena stepped out into the cool night air. The SUV waited until she was inside the building's lobby before pulling away, silent as a shark. Her grandmother was still awake, watching late-night television in her worn armchair. At 76, Nonna Rosa had survived immigration, widowhood, and raising Elena after the car accident that took her parents. Nothing much shocked her anymore. You're home early, Nonna said, studying Elena's face, and something happened. Elena sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. I might have just agreed to work for the Mafia. To her credit, Nonna didn't laugh or panic. She simply turned off the TV and said, Tell me everything. So Elena did. She told her about Marcus, about the corridor, about the champagne glass and the men who'd circled her like wolves. She told her about Dante Moretti appearing from nowhere, about the drive home, about the job offer. When she finished, Nonna was quiet for a long moment. Your grandfather, she finally said, came from the old country. You know this. What you don't know is that he had dealings with men like this Dante Moretti. Not because he wanted to, but because sometimes that's the world you live in. There are men who take, and men who protect. The trick is knowing which is which. And how do you tell? You watch what they do when they think no one's watching. Nonna reached over and squeezed her hand. This Moretti, he could have demanded something from you tonight. Payment for his help. Instead, he offered you a job. A real job. With real money. That tells me something. That he's playing a longer game? Maybe. Or maybe he's the kind of man who doesn't like seeing women treated badly. She shrugged. Either way, you need money. That firm of yours was never going to promote you. I could have told you that years ago. You're too smart and too pretty. And that combination terrifies men like your boss. So, you have a choice. Be poor and proud, or be rich and careful. Elena laughed despite herself. When you put it that way, I put it the only way that matters. Life's too short for pride when the rent's due. Nonna stood, joints creaking. Besides, your grandfather always said the Morettis were different from the other families. Vicious when crossed, but they kept their word. If this Dante says you'll be safe, you'll be safe." That night, Elena lay awake in her childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling. She thought about Marcus's hand on her wrist, about Dante's cold fury, about the way he'd said her full name, like he'd studied her, learned her, decided she was worth saving. She thought about the job she'd lose tomorrow, about the grandmother depending on her, about the city that chewed up women like her and spit them out. By morning, she'd made her decision. Monday came faster than expected. Elena stood outside Moretti Tower in her best interview suit, staring up at the glass and steel monument to power. The building housed everything from law firms to investment groups, all apparently legitimate, but everyone knew who really owned it. The 45th floor was accessed by a private elevator that required a key card. Security called upstairs, confirmed her appointment, and handed her a temporary pass with an efficiency that suggested Dante had been expecting her. The elevator opened onto a reception area that looked like something from an architecture magazine. Minimalist, expensive, intimidating. A woman with perfect hair and a sharper suit looked up from her desk. "Miss Castellano, Mr. Moretti is expecting you. This way." Dante's office occupied a corner with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of Manhattan. He stood with his back to the door, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. When he heard them enter, he finished his sentence and turned. He looked different in the daylight, no less dangerous, but more human somehow. The suit was still perfectly tailored, but he'd rolled up his sleeves, and there was an espresso cup on his desk next to a stack of files that suggested he'd been working for hours already. "Miss Castellano," he said, ending his call. "You came. I said I would. People say lots of things. Few follow through." He gestured to a chair. "Sit. Coffee?" "Thank you." He poured her a cup from a French press on the sideboard, added cream without asking, somehow knowing she took it, and handed it to her. The casual competence of the gesture was oddly endearing. "I assume Hastings and Gray called you Friday afternoon?" he asked, settling into the chair across from her rather than behind his desk, creating the illusion of equality, though they both knew better. "I was let go for unprofessional conduct at a client event. They'll give me 2 weeks severance if I sign an NDA. Elena sipped her coffee. It was excellent. "I didn't sign." "Good. The NDA would prevent you from discussing Vella's behavior. He wanted you silenced." Dante's expression darkened briefly. "He won't get that satisfaction." "What did you do to him?" "Had a conversation. Several conversations, actually, with him and his associates." Dante's smile was pleasant and absolutely terrifying. "He's currently staying at a private facility upstate, recovering from his stress." Elena should probably feel guilty about whatever that meant. She didn't. "And his friends?" "Are learning that actions have consequences." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But we're not here to discuss Marcus Vella. We're here to discuss your future." "I meant what I said. I have a position available in my financial oversight department. You'd be reviewing books, ensuring compliance, identifying investment opportunities across my legitimate holdings. It's real work, challenging work, and I need someone who's not afraid to tell me when the numbers don't add up. Even if telling you that makes you angry, especially then, I don't pay people to blow smoke." He pulled a folder from the side table and handed it to her. "Contract. Read it carefully. Take it to a lawyer if you want. The salary's listed, along with full benefits, retirement matching, and a signing bonus." Elena opened the folder. Her eyes widened at the salary figure. He hadn't been exaggerating about triple her previous pay. "This is generous. It's what you're worth, what you've always been worth." Dante stood, walked to the windows, and looked out over the city. "I need to be clear about something, Miss Castellano. You'll be working for me, but you won't be working for that side of my business. The financial crimes, the violence, the things that keep me up at night, none of that will touch you. You'll handle legitimate operations only, but you'll be associated with me, which means some people will treat you differently. Some doors will close, others will open. You need to understand what you're accepting. Why me? The question burst out before she could stop it. You could hire anyone, someone already established, someone who wouldn't ask questions? He turned back to face her. I told you, I watch interesting people. You're smart, ethical, and you don't back down when challenged. Those are rare qualities. Plus, you told Marcus Vela you didn't need his protection right before accepting mine, which suggests you have excellent instincts for situational irony. Despite herself, Elena laughed. Is that what we're calling this? What would you call it? A devil's bargain? I've been called worse. Dante moved back to his chair, his expression turning serious. I won't pretend this is without risks. But I can promise you'll be safer working for me than you would be anywhere else in this city. Marcus wasn't an anomaly. He was the symptom of a system that protects men like him and punishes women like you for resisting. I'm offering you a way out of that system. Elena looked down at the contract in her hands. Generous salary, clear responsibilities, a clause that explicitly stated she could resign at any time with 2 weeks' notice, no penalties. It was more than fair. It was improbably exactly what she needed. When would I start? She asked. His smile was slow and satisfied, like he'd just won something valuable. Today, if you're ready. I'll have HR get you set up. You'll have an office on this floor, a company laptop, and a team of 3 analysts reporting to you. I want a full review of our real estate holdings by end of quarter. Think you can handle that? Elena stood, extended her hand. I can handle anything, Mr. Moretti. His handshake was firm and warm. Dante, if we're going to be working together, you should call me Dante. Elena. The way he said her name, careful and precise, sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. Welcome to Moretti Enterprises. The first few weeks were a whirlwind. Elena threw herself into the work with the focused intensity of someone who'd been starving professionally for years and finally found sustenance. The real estate portfolio was massive, dozens of properties across 3 states, everything from luxury apartments to commercial warehouses. The books were meticulous, but she found inefficiencies, overlap, opportunities for consolidation that could save millions annually. Her team was skeptical at first. 3 men, all older than her, all clearly wondering why their new boss was a 28-year-old woman who'd appeared out of nowhere. She won them over through sheer competence and by giving them credit for good work, something their previous supervisor apparently never had. Dante checked in weekly, usually appearing in her office unannounced to ask pointed questions about her findings. He listened when she talked, took her recommendations seriously, and implemented most of them without argument. It was intoxicating, being heard, being valued. She tried not to notice how her pulse quickened when he walked into a room, tried not to think about the way his eyes lingered on her sometimes when he thought she wasn't looking, tried not to imagine what his hands would feel like if he touched her the way Marcus had tried to, but with permission, with desire, with... You're working late. Elena jumped, knocking over her coffee cup. Only quick reflexes saved her laptop from disaster. She looked up to find Dante leaning in her doorway, jacket discarded, tie loosened. It was past 8 on a Thursday evening. The office had emptied hours ago. End of quarter review, she said, mopping up the spill with napkins. I want to have the full report ready for you by Friday. It's Thursday night. The report isn't due until Friday afternoon. He moved into her office, closed the door behind him. You need to go home, Elena. I just want it to be perfect. It will be. Your work is always excellent. He perched on the edge of her desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne. When's the last time you took a break? An actual break? Not working from home? Elena tried to remember. I took Sunday off last week. To visit your grandmother, which you've told me about. That's not a break. That's an obligation you love. His expression softened. You're allowed to rest. I'm not Hastings and Gray. I won't punish you for being human. I know that. Do you? Dante tilted his head, studying her. Or are you still waiting for the other shoe to drop? For me to turn into Marcus? Or your old boss? Or every other man who's expected something from you they had no right to expect? The observation was too accurate to be comfortable. Elena looked away, focusing on her computer screen. I appreciate the concern, but I'm fine. Elena! He said it gently, but when she didn't look up, he reached out and tilted her chin toward him with one finger. The touch was electric, sending heat racing through her veins. I need you to hear this. You're safe here. You're valued here. And you don't have to earn that safety and value by working yourself into exhaustion. Do you understand me? She should pull away. Should maintain professional distance. Should remember that this man, however kind he'd been, was still Dante Moretti. Still dangerous in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch, just slightly. I understand. His thumb brushed her cheek, barely a whisper of contact. Good. Now save your work, shut down your computer, and let me take you to dinner. That's not... we shouldn't... It's two colleagues having a meal. Nothing inappropriate. But his eyes said something different, something that made her breath catch. Unless you want it to be inappropriate, in which case we should probably discuss HR policies. Elena laughed, the tension breaking. You're terrible. I've been called worse. He stood, held out his hand. Come on, there's a place in Little Italy that makes carbonara that'll change your life. She shouldn't. Every rational bone in her body screamed that crossing this line would complicate everything. But she'd spent so long being careful, being rational, being safe. And where had it gotten her? Cornered by Marcus Vela and nearly assaulted in a hallway while everyone looked the other way. Dante had saved her, had given her a career, had never once made her feel unsafe or objectified or less than. Maybe it was time to take a risk. Okay, she said, placing her hand in his. Let's go. The restaurant was tiny, family-owned, and clearly somewhere Dante was both known and beloved. The owner, a woman in her 60s who called him Caro, kissed both his cheeks and winked at Elena like she knew a secret. They were seated at a corner table with flickering candlelight and red checkered tablecloths that should have been tacky, but somehow felt romantic. Over carbonara that did, in fact, change Elena's life, Dante told her about growing up in Brooklyn, about his father's death when he was 19, about inheriting an empire he'd never wanted but couldn't abandon. She told him about Colombia, about her parents' accident, about the grandmother who'd sacrificed everything to give her opportunities. They talked about books, about travel, about whether New York pizza was actually superior to Chicago deep dish. Dante's position, obviously yes. Elena's position, she'd need to do more research. They argued about baseball teams and laughed about terrible first jobs and somewhere in the middle of dessert. Tiramisu they shared from one plate. Elena realized she was in serious trouble. Because she didn't just feel safe with Dante Moretti. She felt seen, known, valued in a way that went far beyond professional respect. And from the way he was looking at her, like she was something precious he was afraid to break, she suspected he felt the same way. I should get you home, he said finally, though he didn't move to signal for the check. Your grandmother will worry. I'm 28. I don't have a curfew. No, but you have someone who loves you, waiting to know you're safe. He smiled. I respect that. The drive back to Queens was quieter than dinner had been. Elena watched the city lights slide past, acutely aware of Dante's presence beside her. When they pulled up in front of her building, neither of them moved to get out. Thank you, Elena said. For dinner. For everything, really. The job, the safety, the... Elena. He turned to face her fully. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully. Her heart stuttered. Okay. That night at the gala, when I saw Vela touching you, he stopped, jaw clenching. I've done a lot of terrible things in my life. Things I'm not proud of. Things I can never take back. But in that moment, I would have burned down that entire building to get to you. And every day since, I've had to remind myself that you work for me, that there's a power imbalance, that you deserve better than... Stop. Elena reached out, placed her hand over his where it rested on the center console. Stop assuming you know what I deserve. You deserve someone good, someone clean, someone who... I deserve someone who treats me like an equal, who respects my intelligence, who doesn't make me feel small or afraid. She squeezed his hand. You've been that person from the beginning. So maybe stop telling me what I deserve and let me decide for myself. Dante stared at her, something raw and vulnerable crossing his face. If we do this, if we start something, there's no going back. People will say things. They'll say I took advantage of you. They'll say you're using me. They'll say whatever they want regardless. Elena smiled. I stopped caring what people say when I told Marcus Vela I didn't need his protection. But you do need protection. Just not from me. No, she agreed. Not from you. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles that sent fire racing through her veins. I'm trying very hard to be good about this. To do the right thing. To wait until... Elena leaned across the console and kissed him. For a moment, Dante went absolutely still, shocked into immobility. Then his hand came up to cup her face, gentle despite the barely leashed intensity she could feel thrumming through him, and he kissed her back. It was nothing like the brutal claiming she might have expected. Instead, it was careful, almost reverent, like he was afraid she'd disappear if he held on too tight. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. We're really doing this, he said. Seems like it. Your grandmother's going to kill me. Elena laughed. She's going to love you, trust me. I hope you're right. He kissed her again, softer this time. Because I'm not letting you go, Elena Castellano. Not now. Not ever. 3 months later, Elena was reviewing acquisition proposals when her office door burst open. Not Dante. He always knocked. Instead, a man she vaguely recognized from building security rushed in, face pale. Miss Castellano, I need you to come with me. Now. Her stomach dropped. What happened? Just come, please. They took the private elevator down, but not to the lobby. To the basement levels Elena had never accessed, where the building became less polished corporate veneer and more concrete and shadows. Security led her through a maze of corridors to a heavy door flanked by 2 of Dante's men. Inside, she found chaos barely contained. Dante stood in the center of a room that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Monitors, weapons, several men she recognized from dinner meetings and charity events. But it was the scene on the main screen that made her blood run cold. Security footage. Her grandmother's building. 8 men she didn't recognize surrounding the entrance. What is this? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Dante turned. There was blood on his shirt, though she couldn't tell if it was his. His expression was something beyond fury. Cold, calculated murder barely held in check. Marcus Vela got out of the facility 3 days ago, he said. I thought I'd scared him enough. I was wrong. 2 hours ago, he sent these men to your grandmother's building with a message for you. Elena's knees went weak. Is she... safe? I had someone watching the building, remember? They got her out before Vela's men arrived. She's here, 3 floors up, drinking tea and telling everyone she always knew you'd end up with someone exciting. Despite the situation, the corner of his mouth twitched. Your grandmother is remarkably unflappable. Relief flooded through her, so intense she had to grab the desk for support. Thank you. God, thank you. Don't thank me yet. Dante's expression hardened again. Those 8 men are still there, still waiting. And Marcus is somewhere in the city, coordinating this, thinking he can touch what's mine and face no consequences. The possessiveness in his voice should probably concern her. It didn't. What are you going to do? What I should have done 3 months ago. End this permanently. He crossed to her, took her face in his hands. But I need to know you're okay with that. Because once I do this, there's no pretending I'm just a legitimate businessman anymore. You'll know exactly what I'm capable of, and I need you to be able to look at me after. Elena understood what he was really asking. Could she accept all of him? Not just the man who took her to dinner and kissed her like she was precious, but the man who would make 8 people vanish for daring to threaten her grandmother? She thought about Marcus's hand on her wrist, about the way those men had circled her, predatory and entitled, about every woman who'd been in her position and had no one to call, no one powerful enough to make it stop. I told you once I didn't need your protection, she said. I was wrong. I need it. But more than that, I want it. From you specifically. Because you don't just protect me. You see me as an equal while doing it. So yes, Dante, I'm okay with it. Do what needs to be done. His kiss was brief but intense, full of promise and violence and devotion. When he pulled back, his eyes were clear. Decided. Take her to your grandmother, he told one of his men. Keep them both in the secure room until I come back. Elena caught his arm before he could leave. Dante, come back. Always, he promised. The secure room turned out to be a luxurious apartment hidden in the building's upper floors. Safe room disguised as living space. Nonna Rosa was indeed drinking tea, looking utterly unconcerned about being evacuated from her home by armed men. There you are, she said when Elena burst in. These nice boys have been taking very good care of me. I've been telling them about your grandfather. Nonna, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. This is the fault of bad men who think women are property. Nonna set down her teacup with a decisive clink. Your Dante is handling it. He called me personally to explain. Very respectful. I like him. Despite everything, Elena had to smile. You like him because he's Italian. I like him because he looks at you like your grandfather used to look at me, like you're the only real thing in a world of ghosts. She patted the couch beside her. Come, sit. Tell me what you're so afraid of. Elena sank down beside her grandmother. What if doing this, fixing this problem, changes him? Changes us? Cara, listen to me. Men like Dante, they don't change. They are what they are. But sometimes what they are is someone who protects instead of destroys. Your grandfather, he did things I never asked about. I knew, but I didn't ask. Because I also knew that he would walk through fire for me, that our children would never go hungry, that no one would dare hurt us. That's not nothing. That's everything. But the violence is happening whether you acknowledge it or not. At least this way it's protecting something good. Nonna took her hand. The world isn't kind to people like us, Elena. We come from nothing. We work hard, and still there are men like that, Marcus, who think they can take whatever they want. Having someone powerful on your side, that's not something to apologize for. They waited together. An hour passed. Then 2. Elena tried not to imagine what Dante was doing. Tried not to think about the 8 men who'd come to threaten her grandmother. Tried not to wonder what handling it actually meant. Finally, the door opened. Dante stood there, changed into a clean shirt, hair damp like he'd showered. His knuckles were bruised, but not cut. When he saw Elena, his entire body seemed to relax. It's done, he said simply. Nonna Rosa stood, collected her purse. I'm going to go check on the guest room these nice boys showed me. You two talk. She paused by Dante, reached up to pat his cheek. You're good for her. Better than those boys at her old job. Take care of my granddaughter. I will, Dante promised. I swear it. When they were alone, Elena moved into his arms. He held her tight, face pressed into her hair. The men? She asked quietly. Won't be bothering anyone again. Neither will Marcus. He's on a plane to Eastern Europe as we speak with a very clear understanding that, Returning to the United States would be extremely detrimental to his health. Dante pulled back to look at her. It's over, Elena. You're safe. Your grandmother's safe. And I've made sure every family in the city knows that you're under my protection. No one will touch you. Did you kill them? She had to ask. Had to know. No, I wanted to. But I also wanted to be able to look you in the eye and tell you I found another way. So I did. They're alive, terrified, and will be working off their debt to me in ways that don't involve violence. He cupped her face. I meant what I said. I'll walk through fire for you, but I won't become a monster just because I can. Elena kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it. Gratitude, love, trust, desire. When they broke apart, she was crying. Hey, Dante said, wiping her tears with his thumbs. Why the tears? Because I love you, she said. Because you're terrifying and protective, and you could have killed those men, but you didn't. Because you evacuated my grandmother with tea service. Because you're exactly who I need, even though I didn't know I needed you until you appeared in that hallway. His smile was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. I love you too. Have since that first night, if I'm being honest. You stood there in that corridor and refused to be broken. And I thought, this woman. This is the woman I've been waiting for. So what happens now? Now? Dante pulled a small box from his pocket. Now I do something I've been planning for weeks, but wasn't sure I had the right to ask. Elena's breath caught as he opened the box. The ring inside was perfect, simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the light like a promise. I know it's fast, Dante said. I know people will say we barely know each other, that this is crazy. And maybe it is, but I've lived my whole life in the darkness, Elena. And then you walked into it, and suddenly I could see. I want to marry you. I want to protect you, and challenge you, and build something real with you. I want your grandmother at Sunday dinners telling me embarrassing stories about you. I want to wake up beside you for the next 60 years and still think I'm the luckiest man alive. Say yes. It was crazy. It was fast. It was everything she'd never known she wanted until right now. Yes, Elena said. Yes, I'll marry you. The kiss that followed was interrupted by cheering from the hallway, where apparently half of Dante's security team had been eavesdropping. Nonna Rosa appeared with champagne she'd clearly had waiting. Finally, she said. I was beginning to think you'd never ask. Now, we have a wedding to plan. I'm thinking spring. And Elena, Cara, you'll wear my wedding dress. 6 months later, Elena Moretti stood in her office, newly redesigned and expanded to reflect her promotion to CFO of all Moretti Enterprises, and looked out over the city. Her city now, in a way it had never been before. The wedding had been beautiful, small, intimate, with enough of Dante's world mixed with hers that it felt like a true blending of lives. She'd worn her grandmother's dress, and Dante had cried when he saw her, and afterward they'd danced until dawn. Marcus Vella sent them a wedding gift from Prague, an expensive vase and a note apologizing for any misunderstanding. Dante had laughed and donated the vase to charity. The note he'd framed and hung in his office as a reminder that even men who thought themselves untouchable could learn lessons. Life was different now. Better. Elena's work had genuine impact. She'd restructured the company's entire financial framework, increased profits by 18%, while ensuring complete legal compliance, and was courting legitimate investment from firms that previously wouldn't touch Moretti money. She was also pregnant, though they hadn't told anyone yet. Just 3 months, early enough that she was being careful, late enough that she'd started imagining what their child would look like. Would they have Dante's dark eyes? Her grandmother's stubborn chin? Mrs. Moretti. Her assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your husband's here. Elena smiled. Dante appeared in her doorway moments later, carrying takeout from her favorite Thai place. Lunch break, he announced. Doctor's orders, also mine. Also your grandmother's. She called me 3 times today to make sure you were eating enough. She's going to be unbearable when we tell her about the baby. She's going to be perfect. Dante set out the food, kissed her temple. How are you feeling? Good. Tired, but good. Elena accepted the pad thai he handed her. I finished the merger proposal for the Brooklyn properties. It's aggressive, but I think we can pull it off. I know you can. You're brilliant. He watched her eat with that expression he got sometimes, like he couldn't quite believe she was real. Have I told you today that I love you? Only 4 times. You're falling behind. Then I love you. I love you. I love you. He kissed her between each declaration. And I'm grateful every single day that you walked into that gala and told Marcus Vella you didn't need protection. Elena laughed, caught his hand, pressed it to where their baby was growing. I didn't need his protection. I needed yours. There's a difference. There is, Dante agreed, wonder in his voice as he felt the slight curve of her belly. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. Outside the window, Manhattan spread out before them, millions of lives, millions of stories, and one that had started in a corridor with broken glass and ended here, in this office, with this man, with a future that was theirs to build together. Elena had told Marcus she didn't need his protection. She'd been right. What she'd needed was a partner, an equal, someone who saw her strength and matched it with his own, someone who protected not because she was weak, but because she was precious. By dawn that night at the gala, 8 men who'd tried to touch her had vanished. But the woman they'd targeted, she'd become something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. She'd become Elena Moretti. Wife, CFO, mother-to-be. And no one in this city would ever underestimate her again. What Elena didn't know was that darkness had a memory, and it was about to come calling with interest. The call came on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after they'd announced the pregnancy to the family. Elena was in a meeting with potential investors, old money from Boston who were intrigued by Moretti Enterprises' transformation into something resembling legitimacy, when her assistant appeared in the doorway with an expression that made Elena's blood run cold. I'm sorry to interrupt, Maria said, her voice carefully controlled. But there's an urgent situation. Your husband needs you immediately. The investors protested, but Elena was already gathering her things. Something in Maria's eyes told her this wasn't a false alarm. She'd worked with Maria long enough to know the difference between urgent and catastrophic. This was catastrophic. Dante's office was chaos contained behind closed doors. 6 of his senior people were there, all of them armed, all of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. And in the center of it all, Dante stood at his desk, staring at a photograph that had been couriered to the building 20 minutes ago. When he looked up and saw her, Elena watched something break in his expression. Fear. Raw, undiluted fear. What happened? She asked, moving to his side. He handed her the photograph without a word. It was grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. Elena herself, leaving the doctor's office yesterday afternoon. The medical building where her obstetrician practiced, where she'd gone for her 12-week checkup. Someone had been following her, someone new, but it was the message scrawled on the back that made her stomach turn to ice. Congratulations on the baby. Would be a shame if something happened to it. Or her. Or both. You have 48 hours to transfer $50 million to the account below, or I start collecting pieces. Your father sends his regards. Elena's hands started shaking. His father? Dante, your father's been dead for 16 years. I know. Dante's voice was flat, emotionless in the way that meant he was barely holding himself together. But my father had a partner, Luca Santoro, the man who actually ran the family before I took over, the man who tried to kill me when I was 19 because he wanted control and I was in the way. You said he was in prison, life sentence. He was. He is. Dante pulled up something on his tablet, showed her a news article from that morning. But his son, Marco Santoro, was released 3 months ago. Good behavior, and apparently he's been planning this ever since. One of the men in the room, Vincent, Dante's head of security, stepped forward. We've been tracking Marco's movements since his release. He's been careful, staying clean, but we knew he'd make a move eventually. We just didn't know when or how. So you knew about this threat and didn't tell me? Elena's voice was sharp. Didn't think I deserved to know someone was targeting us? We didn't know he was targeting you specifically, Vincent said. We thought he'd come after Dante directly, challenge him for control of the territory. This, he gestured at the photograph, this is different. This is personal. Dante's hand found Elena's, squeezed. Marco's father and mine were partners, but they hated each other. When my father died, Luca tried to take everything. I stopped him, had him arrested. His son was 15 when Luca went to prison. He spent the last decade watching his father rot, while I built an empire on what he thinks is his family's legacy. His jaw clenched. He wants to hurt me the way I hurt his father, by taking away everything I love. Elena forced herself to think past the fear, to focus. The 50 million, can you pay it? I could pay 10 times that, but it won't matter. Dante's expression was grim. Marco doesn't want the money. He wants me destroyed. Even if I pay, he'll still come after you, after the baby, after your grandmother. He'll bleed me dry and then kill everyone I care about anyway, just to make a point. Then what do we do? The room fell silent. Elena looked around at these men, criminals, all of them in one way or another, and saw her own fear reflected back at her. They didn't know. For the first time since she'd entered this world, the people who were supposed to have all the answers had nothing. We run. Dante's voice was hollow. I have resources. Safe houses across the country. Money in accounts Marco can't touch. We disappear. You, me, your grandmother. We start over somewhere he'll never find us. And abandon everything? The business? The life we built? Elena shook her head. That's not a solution. That's surrendering. That's you and our baby staying alive. Dante grabbed her shoulders, gentle despite his desperation. Elena, I can rebuild a business. I can't rebuild you. If something happens, if I lose you because I was too proud or too stubborn to walk away, you're not listening. Elena pulled away, started pacing. Her mind was racing, analyzing the problem the way she'd analyze a bad investment. Marco wants revenge. He wants you broken. Running away doesn't break you. It gives him exactly what he wants without the satisfaction of having earned it. We need to take away his leverage. His leverage is you and our child, unless you're suggesting we... I'm suggesting we make me not worth taking. Elena spun to face the room. Marco's threat only works if I'm vulnerable. If I'm someone who can be grabbed off the street and held for ransom. But what if I'm not? What if I become so public, so visible, that touching me would bring down every law enforcement agency in the country? Vincent caught on first. You want to go to the FBI? No, I want to go to the press. Elena's mind was clicking through possibilities. We announce my pregnancy publicly. Big, splashy interview. Maybe with that reporter from the Times who's been trying to do a profile on legitimate business transformations. We talk about how I've reformed the financial structure of Moretti Enterprises, how we're moving away from the old ways. We make me and this baby the face of redemption. That paints an even bigger target on you, Dante said. No, it makes me bulletproof. Because if anything happens to me after that interview, if I so much as stub my toe, every cop in the city will assume it's Marco Santoro making a move. He becomes the prime suspect in a crime that hasn't even happened yet. The scrutiny would destroy him. Dante was shaking his head, but she could see him considering it. It's too risky. Everything's risky. At least this way we control the narrative. Elena moved back to him, took his hands. I didn't marry you so you could spend the rest of your life protecting me from shadows. I married you so we could face threats together, as partners, as equals. You're pregnant. I'm pregnant, not helpless. And this baby deserves parents who stand and fight, not parents who spend their lives running. She squeezed his hands. Trust me, Dante. Trust that I know what I'm doing. The silence stretched. Finally, Dante looked at Vincent. What do you think? I think she's either crazy or a genius. Maybe both. Vincent shrugged. But it could work. Marco's smart, but he's not patient. If we put Mrs. Moretti in the spotlight, he'll either back off or get reckless trying to get to her anyway. Either way, we gain an advantage. And if he gets reckless, if he tries something in public, then we'll be ready. Vincent's expression hardened. I've been in this business 30 years. I know how men like Marco think. The interview buys us time and changes the game. After that, we make sure he understands, very clearly, what happens when you threaten a Moretti. Elena felt Dante's resistance warring with his logic. She understood. Every instinct he had was screaming at him to hide her away, to wrap her in protection until the threat passed. But she'd learned something in the months since Marcus Vela. Sometimes safety wasn't about hiding. Sometimes it was about being so visible that darkness couldn't touch you. 48 hours, Dante finally said. We have 48 hours before his deadline. If we're doing this, we need to move fast. Vincent, contact that Times reporter. Tell her we're offering an exclusive. Maria, clear Elena's schedule for the next 2 days. And someone get me everything we have on Marco Santoro's current operation. Every location, every associate, every weakness. If Elena's putting herself on the line, I want options for ending this permanently. The room exploded into controlled chaos. People made calls, pulled up files, started coordinating. Elena found herself swept up in preparations, what to wear, what to say, how to present their story in a way that was both honest and strategic. The interview was scheduled for the following afternoon. 24 hours to prepare. 24 hours before Elena would sit in front of a camera and make herself and her unborn child the most high-profile target in New York. That night, alone in their bedroom, Dante held her like she might disappear. His hand rested on her stomach, where their baby was growing, safe for now in a world that wanted to hurt them. I'm terrified, he admitted quietly. I've faced down killers, survived assassination attempts, walked into rooms knowing I might not walk out. But this? The thought of something happening to you? It's a kind of fear I've never felt before. I'm scared too, Elena said, but I'm also angry. Marco Santoro doesn't get to take this from us. Our baby doesn't get to grow up in hiding because someone else wants revenge. We're stronger than that. You're stronger than that. I'm just trying to keep up. She turned in his arms, kissed him softly. We're stronger together. That's the whole point. Marco thinks he can break you by threatening me. He doesn't understand that threatening me just makes you more dangerous. He's going to find out. Dante's expression went cold. Interview or not, protection or not. If he comes after you, if he so much as breathes in your direction after tomorrow, I will end him, Elena. No mercy, no second chances. I need you to know that about me. I do know, and I'm not asking you to be merciful. I'm just asking you to be smart. She pressed his hand more firmly against her stomach. This baby needs both parents, so whatever you do to keep us safe, make sure you come back too. The interview took place in Moretti Tower's conference room, transformed for the occasion with plants and soft lighting to make it feel less corporate. The reporter, Catherine Reeves, was in her 50s with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness that had made her interview request impossible to refuse. Elena sat beside Dante, acutely aware of the cameras, of the makeup covering the shadows under her eyes from sleepless nights, of the simple dress she'd chosen that would show her baby bump without being too obvious about it. Let's start with the obvious question, Catherine said after pleasantries. You're the CFO of a company that, until recently, had a reputation for being less than legitimate. What changed? Elena had practiced this answer, but she still felt the weight of it. What changed was me. When I started working here 18 months ago, I saw potential for something different. a business model that didn't rely on the old ways. Dante gave me complete authority to restructure our financial operations with one rule. Everything had to be legal and sustainable. It was challenging, but we did it. Today, Moretti Enterprises is fully compliant with all federal and state regulations, and we're proud of that. And your relationship with Mr. Moretti? Some people might say there's a conflict of interest. Some people would be right if we'd started our relationship while I was just an analyst. Elena smiled. But Dante and I didn't begin dating until after I'd already proven my worth professionally, and we put strict protocols in place to prevent any impropriety. I report to the board, not directly to him. My decisions are reviewed by independent auditors. We keep business and personal separate. Catherine turned to Dante. Your father was connected to organized crime. Your own history has been complicated. What do you say to people who think this legitimate business angle is just a front? I'd say, look at our books. Dante's voice was calm, confident. We've invited federal audits. We've cooperated with law enforcement investigations. We pay our taxes, follow labor laws, and maintain transparency in all our dealings. Could I have continued running things the old way? Sure, but I didn't want that life. And when I met Elena, he glanced at her, and Elena saw real emotion there, not performance. I especially didn't want that life. She made me want to be better. Speaking of which, Catherine leaned forward. There's been speculation about your personal life. Would you like to address that? This was it. The moment they'd orchestrated this entire interview around. Elena took a breath, felt Dante's hand find hers under the table. We're expecting a baby, Elena said, letting joy color her voice because it was true, underneath the fear. I'm 14 weeks along. We're thrilled. Catherine's professional mask cracked into a genuine smile. Congratulations, that's wonderful news. Have you thought about how you'll raise a child in your unique situation? Every day. Elena's hand moved to her stomach. This baby will grow up knowing both sides of their heritage. They'll know that their father came from darkness, but chose light. That their mother came from nothing and built something. And they'll know, more than anything, that they're loved and protected. The word protected was deliberate. Elena saw Catherine catch it, file it away. Protected from what, exactly? From judgment. From assumptions about who they are based on their last name. Elena held the reporter's gaze, and from anyone who might want to use them to settle old scores. There it was, the gauntlet thrown down for Marco Santoro and anyone else who might be watching. Catherine's expression sharpened. Are you saying there's a specific threat? I'm saying that when you're in our position, there are always people who have problems with your success. People who'd rather see you fail than admit that change is possible. Dante's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. But we're not going to fail, and we're not going to hide. This is our city, our business, our family. Anyone who has a problem with that is welcome to come at us directly, rather than lurking in shadows. It was a challenge and a warning, delivered on camera, impossible to miss. The rest of the interview covered lighter topics, nursery plans, names they were considering, how Elena's grandmother had reacted to the news. But the message had been sent. By tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the city would be running the story. Dante and Elena Moretti, expecting their first child, daring anyone to try something. After the cameras shut off and Catherine left, Elena felt the adrenaline drain, leaving her shaky and exhausted. Dante caught her, held her steady. You were perfect, he murmured. Brave and perfect and probably too smart for your own good. Did it work? Will Marco back off? We're about to find out. The answer came 6 hours later. Elena was resting in the penthouse apartment they'd moved into after the wedding, top floor of Moretti Tower, more secure than the White House, when Vincent arrived with news. Marco made contact, he said without preamble. Through intermediaries. He wants to meet. Dante, who'd been on his laptop coordinating security protocols, looked up sharply. When and where? Tomorrow night, neutral ground. The old warehouse district by the river. Just him and you." Vincent paused. "He said to tell you he saw the interview. Said he admires your wife's courage, but that it changes nothing. It's a trap." Elena stood, ignoring the dizziness. "He wants you alone so he can kill me, probably, or try to." Dante's expression was unreadable. "Which is exactly what I want him to try." "Absolutely not." Elena moved between him and Vincent. "You're not going anywhere near Marco Santoro alone. That's suicide." "It's strategy." Dante stood, took her hands. "Marco challenged me. If I don't show, I look weak. Weakness invites more threats, more challenges. But if I go, if I face him and win, and if you lose, I won't." The certainty in his voice was absolute. "Marco's angry, but anger makes people sloppy. He's been planning this for months, but he's also been watching his father rot in prison for 16 years. That kind of rage, it blinds you, makes you impatient." Vincent nodded. "We'll have people positioned around the perimeter. The second Marco makes a move, we can—" "No." Dante's voice was firm. "He'll have people watching for that. This has to look like a fair fight. 1-on-1, or we lose the advantage. The families are watching this. If they think I need an army to handle one angry kid, they'll start questioning whether I'm still strong enough to lead. So you're just going to walk into an obvious trap for your reputation?" Elena felt fury rising, hot and clarifying. "This is insane. This is the world I live in, the world we live in now." Dante cupped her face. "I know you hate this. I hate it too. But Marco won't stop until one of us is dead. The interview bought us time, changed the optics. Now I need to end it, permanently. Then I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. Not to the meeting, but close enough. In the car, with Vincent and the security team." Elena set her jaw. "You don't get to shut me out of this, Dante. That baby in the interview, that's my child too. This threat, it's against me too. I deserve to be there when you end it." She could see him wanting to refuse, to bundle her away somewhere safe. But she'd learned to read his expressions, and underneath the protectiveness was respect. Acknowledgement that she was right. "You stay in the car," he finally said. "Bulletproof a mile away, ready to drive the second things go south. And if I give Vincent the signal, you leave. You don't wait, you don't argue. You just go. Deal?" "Deal." The next night arrived too fast and too slow simultaneously. Elena dressed carefully, comfortable clothes, flat shoes she could run in if necessary. Dante wore his usual suit, but she noticed the body armor underneath, the extra weapons that Vincent pressed into his hands. The drive to the warehouse district was silent, tense. Elena sat in the back of the SUV, surrounded by armed men who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Through the tinted windows, she watched the city give way to industrial decay, abandoned buildings that had once housed manufacturing, but now just housed ghosts. Vincent's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then leaned back to speak to Elena. "Marco's there, alone, as promised. No visible backup, though that doesn't mean much." "How does Dante look?" she asked. "Like he's about to go to war." Vincent's expression was grim. "Mrs. Moretti, I need you to understand something. If this goes bad, if your husband doesn't walk out of that warehouse, we have protocols. We'll get you somewhere safe, somewhere Marco and his people can never find you, your grandmother too. You'll be protected. If he doesn't walk out, I don't want protection. I want revenge." Vincent studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Understood." The SUV parked a mile away, as promised, in an alley with clear sightlines in all directions. Elena watched through binoculars as a single figure, Dante, moving with that predatory grace she'd come to know, approached the warehouse. The door opened. He disappeared inside. And then they waited. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Elena counted her heartbeats, felt the baby flutter inside her. So small still, so vulnerable. She thought about the interview, about putting themselves in the spotlight, about whether she'd made the right choice or signed their death warrant. A gunshot split the night. Elena lunged forward, but Vincent caught her. "Wait! Just wait!" Another shot. Then silence. Horrible, endless silence. "I'm going in," one of the security team said, reaching for the door handle. "No one moves." Vincent's voice was command. "We wait for the signal." Elena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All she could see was Dante falling, bleeding, dying alone in that warehouse while she sat here, doing nothing. Then the warehouse door opened. 2 figures emerged. One was Dante, walking steadily, coat torn, but upright. The other was Marco Santoro, younger than Elena had imagined, being half carried, half dragged by Dante's grip on his collar. Vincent's phone rang. He answered, listened, then turned to Elena with something like awe on his face. "Your husband just made Marco Santoro swear fealty in front of witnesses. He's not dead. Dante wanted him alive, wanted him to understand that he lost, that his father lost, that the Moretti family is untouchable." Vincent shook his head slowly. "I've been in this business 30 years. I've never seen anyone turn a death threat into a loyalty oath." The SUV's door opened. Dante slid in beside Elena, pulled her against him. His hands were shaking. "It's over," he said into her hair. "Marco's going to work for me now. His entire operation folds into ours. He takes orders from me, and in exchange, I don't kill him for threatening my wife. The other families witnessed it. It's done." Elena pulled back, searched his face. There was blood on his cheek, not his, and his eyes held ghosts she'd never seen before. "You could have killed him." "I wanted to." "God, Elena, you have no idea how much I wanted to." His voice broke slightly. "But you were right. About visibility, about changing the game. Killing him would have made me the villain. Sparing him, turning him, that makes me merciful, powerful, someone the other families respect rather than fear." "Or both," Vincent said dryly. "Definitely both." The drive back to the tower was quiet. Dante held Elena like she was the only thing keeping him grounded. When they finally made it to their apartment, he checked every room, every lock, every window before finally allowing himself to relax. "Never again," he said, pulling her close. "No more threats, no more challenges. I'm done with the old ways, Elena. Completely done. From now on, we're exactly what we told Catherine Reeves. A legitimate business run by people who used to be other things. Marco working for us? That's the last piece falling into place." Elena rested her head on his chest, felt his heartbeat steady and strong. "You scared me tonight. I scared myself." He kissed the top of her head. "When I walked into that warehouse, all I could think about was you and the baby, about how I might not come back, about how you'd have to raise our child alone. It made me reckless, made me dangerous in ways Marco wasn't prepared for." "What did you say to him? To make him surrender?" Dante was quiet for a moment. "I told him the truth, that his father's vendetta destroyed their family, and if he continued it, he'd end up in the same prison cell, staring at the same walls, dying with the same regrets. I told him I was offering him a choice, work with me and build something new, or die here and become a footnote. I told him revenge was a poison that would kill him slower and more painfully than any bullet I could put in his head. And he believed you? He believed that I'd already won, that threatening you was the last move he had, and when it didn't work, when you put yourself in the spotlight and dared him to try something, he realized he had no leverage left. Just a choice between dignity and death." Dante pulled back, looked at her seriously. "You saved him tonight, you know. If you'd hidden, if you'd let me protect you the old way, I would have killed him. No question. But because you were brave, because you changed the game, I had room to be merciful instead." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. I didn't do it to save Marco Santoro. I know. You did it to save us. All three of us. His hand found her stomach again. That gentle, protective gesture that had become habit. Our baby's going to grow up in a different world because of what you did. A safer world. A better one. 3 months later, when Elena gave birth to a healthy baby girl with her father's dark eyes and her mother's stubborn determination, the first visitor to the hospital room was an unexpected one. Marco Santoro stood in the doorway holding flowers, looking uncomfortable and young, and nothing like the threat he'd been. I heard congratulations were in order, he said. My mother always said you bring flowers for new babies. Dante tensed, but Elena gestured him in. Thank you, Marco. That's very kind. He approached the bed carefully, looked down at the tiny bundle in Elena's arms. She's beautiful, like her mother. Lucky she didn't get her father's ugly mug. Despite himself, Dante laughed. Watch it, Santoro. I also wanted to say... Marco paused, clearly struggling. Thank you for what you did, for not... He couldn't finish, but they all knew what he meant. For not killing me when you had the chance. Thank you for giving me a reason not to, Dante said quietly. You've been a good soldier these past months. Loyal, effective. That matters. Elena watched this exchange and understood what had really happened that night in the warehouse. Dante hadn't just defeated an enemy. He'd created an ally. Transformed a threat into an asset through mercy and strategy, and the kind of wisdom that came from choosing a different path. After Marco left, Elena looked at her husband holding their daughter and thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that hallway, where Marcus Vela had grabbed her, through every threat and challenge and moment of fear, to this hospital room where their family was just beginning. I love you, she told Dante, and I'm proud of you. Not for who you were, but for who you chose to become. He kissed her, soft and reverent. I chose to become someone worthy of you, still working on that every day. Their daughter, Sophia Rosa Moretti, named for both her grandmothers, yawned and stretched in Dante's arms, utterly unconcerned with the complicated history that had brought her into existence. She was safe, protected, loved beyond measure by parents who'd fought for the right to give her a better world. And in the end, that was all that mattered.